Hey, good morning. What's up, everyone? Thanks for joining us for a special Wednesday episode of Attacking Third alongside Sandra Herrera. I'm Lisa Carlin. Sandra, good morning. It's good to see you. What jersey are you wearing today?
I'm all mixed match today. I got Tigres Femenil rocking them this AM. And then I said, you know what? For the hat, we should just toss on the National Women's Soccer League hat. Why not just mix it up?
You are screaming the Summer Cup right here, like the NWSL Liga MX Femenil crossover. We're like on the same page for so many things and not for this. I didn't wear a jersey today.
That's okay.
I,
You you
I know.
you you carried the load last week. I'm carrying it this week.
We're taking turns.
I'm not ready to let go of Summer Cup. Here we are.
I absolutely love it. Everyone, if you are joining us live on YouTube, thank you so much. We go live every single Wednesday at 11 a.m. And by we, I mean Sandra and I. It's us here chilling with you, the people that join us live. So thank you. Like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel so you get alerts when we're going live. And be sure to join the conversation in the chat. Your comments, your questions, anything. Get the conversation flowing in there. And we are going to dive into so much today. So stick with us. We'll be right back. Hey everyone, welcome into Attacking Third and happy Wednesday. It's Wednesday, so you know what that means. Sandra Herrera and Lisa Carlin here for you to dive into everything around the world of women's football. Sandra, how's it going today? How are you?
It's another Wednesday. It's another Wednesday with you and the people. My favorite day of the week.
It is my favorite day of the week. Absolutely. We are diving into a lot today. We've got the PFA Awards, those results that came out. We are dropping a new segment on A3 Wednesdays. We're calling it the Hall of Legends. So you don't want to hear who we are inducting into the Hall of Legends for our first annual induction ceremony. Plus, we've got League Cup group stage draw results and all the details for that. And we always round out these Wednesday episodes with, in case you missed it, filling in on everything that you might have missed or we haven't had a chance to talk about in the last week. But before we get to all of that, Sandra, we have some exciting news. We are happy and pleased and honored to announce that we are finalists in the People's Choice Podcast Awards. Thanks to you, everyone that listens, watches us on YouTube, watches us on Golazo Network. But we can still use your help. So if you voted for us in the last round to make us to the finalist round, you may be able to vote again and you may be eligible. So check your email. And if you have something from People's Choice Podcast Awards, click on it and give us that final vote. You can vote for us through September 3rd. So thank you if you've already done it. Check your email and vote for us again. All right, Sandra, should we dive into it and get the show rolling?
Let's go. We got a good one.
We have a good one. There's a lot to get through. So I'm like, let's go. We got to get through it. Let's start with the PFA Awards because the 51st edition of the coveted PFA Awards, which is the Professional Footballers Association, took place earlier this week on Tuesday, and the winners have been announced. So the biggest category, arguably, is the Player of the Year. And the winner is Manchester City's Khadisha Bunny Shaw, who topped the scoring charts in the Super League last year with 21 goals in just 18 games. And the Jamaican international is so deserving of this award. Some other players that were on the short list, Shaw's teammates at Man City, Hasagawa and Lauren Hemp, as well as Chelsea standouts, Neve Charles, Aaron Cuthbert, and Lauren James. But Sandra, our girl Bunny Shaw, she got it done, and she is the Player of the Year for the PFA Awards.
I love it. You love to see it. If you're joining us live, love to see that image of her carrying the hardware because Man City fell a little short of their campaign. And no, football's not about one player, but that was a concern for us as we saw them go down the final stretch of the season to lose Bunny Shaw to a foot injury. What were they going to look like? Could they hold on so much goal scoring to lose down the stretch of the season where you see Chelsea creeping in, riding the highs and lows of a season? So I'm thrilled that she got this honor and to get it in this manner. listening to you run down the other finalists for this award as well. Tons of great players in the running. Congratulations to Khadijah Shaw. I can't wait to see what she's got next.
I mean, to win the Golden Boot and not even play the final couple weeks of the season due to an injury, an unfortunate injury, but that just proves how dominant Bunny Shaw was throughout the Super League season and with City. I'm so excited for the redemption tour of Bunny Shaw and what she's going to do, because once you get an award like this, you almost try to get better and say, okay, can I win it again? What can I do more of and show out? It just kind of lights a fire under you. So Bunny Shaw wins Player of the Year. There's also a Young Player of the Year award. Last year, it was Lauren James out of Chelsea who won it. And this year, it is Tottenham Hotspur Grace Clinton, who is the winner. She is the 21-year-old, and she had an incredible breakthrough campaign in the Super League. She was on loan with Tottenham in the 2023-2024 season, but she made an impact every time she stepped on the pitch. 4 goals, she assisted in 4 others, and she had 20 league appearances. So congratulations to Grace Clinton. She went up against Aggie Beaver-Jones of Chelsea, Lauren James, who was the winner last year of Chelsea, and then out of Manchester City, Kiara Keating and Jess Park, and then out of Manchester United, Myra Letizier. But congratulations, Grace Clinton. People joining us live on YouTube are really excited to see Clinton win this Young Player of the Year award. It was very deserved for Clinton, Sandra.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, look, I think if you're a Spurs fan, you're like, yes, let's get it in. Let's claim something for last season. And look, we talk a week in, week out about player impact in minimal amount of time, and I think this is a player that really showed that for Tottenham. And I think if you're looking ahead into the season, you're still going to have a certain amount of clubs who are going to make their runs, ultimately be the one standing at the end. But it's worth noting that it's the Young Player Award, that maybe this is something or someone that Tottenham can continue to build around moving forward.
Yeah, that's cool to think about. Just 20 years old. There's a huge future for Grace Clinton. Some of the other awards that were dropped were the PFA Merit Award. This was given to Fara Williams, who is an English international legend. She ended her career as the most capped English player in history, 177 appearances, 40 goals over 18 years. So congratulations, Fara Williams. Amazing to see you get this award. And then, Sandra, they dropped the Women's Super League Team of the Year. I love this because it is voted by the players of the league in order to win this award and to be named on the best 11. I'm just going to run through it roster style, how we do it here on A3 goalkeepers moving forward. So goalkeeper for this was Kiara Keating out of Manchester City. Defenders, Alex Greenwood, Man City. Niamh Charles out of Chelsea. Leah Alexandri from Manchester City, and Lot Moy out of Arsenal. In the midfield, it was Hasegawa from City, Erin Cuthbert from Chelsea, and Grace Clinton, the Young Player of the Year from Tottenham. Up top, forwards, Player of the Year, Khadijah Bunny Shaw from City, Lauren James out of Chelsea, and Lauren Hemp out of Man City. Sandra, 6 City players named to this: Shaw, Hasegawa, Hemp, Keating, Greenwood, and Alexandri. Didn't even win the title, and they got 6 players in this. It just says a lot about how stacked City is in this league.
Listen, players vote on these awards. You got to respect how the results shake out. I'm not gonna lie. I'm a little surprised that maybe there wasn't like one more Arsenal player or two on this one. But listen, hard to argue with any of these teams that are listed in front of us on Team of the Year.
Only one Arsenal player, Ruben Moy, listed in the defenders. And for Chelsea, right, there's only 3 Chelsea players featured, and they're title winners with Niamh Charles, Erin Cuthbert, and Lauren James. And then, of course, Grace Clinton, only the one team out of the top 4 with Tottenham to be named to this list. It's such interesting dynamics to see which players vote for who and kind of how that all wiggles out at the end of it. To me, this says more about Man City and how stacked they are with their depth, right? Because they've got their goalkeeper, they've got um, 2 in the back line, 1 in the midfield, 2 in the front line. Like across the board, City has so much depth. And Chelsea, when you see them competing in the league, and especially under Emma Hayes last year, they end up winning the Super League, but they do it based on a balance of players. They weren't like super stacked throughout their roster, especially when you look at who was ultimately team of the year, but they were able to get the job done based on a lot of team performance from Chelsea versus a lot of individual performance. And no Manchester United players on this list either, which I thought was a little interesting.
I mean, they faded. They faded down the
I
stretch. It
know.
was a team that we were, I think, hopeful at one point to see them mix things up and maybe make things interesting down the stretch. I think we all agreed, I think, at one point that Nikita Paris was putting together a really good run of a season for them. But recency bias sometimes, is a factor in this stuff. And if you fade down the stretch, you might fade in the running for some of these awards as well.
There's only one Arsenal player, as you mentioned. You would have liked to see more. Any other nominees that you would have thrown their name into the hat for the team of the month or team of the year?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm gonna always be, I think, a fan of the way Alicia Russo plays. Maybe would have liked to seen her in the mix, but I mean, again, like I mentioned earlier, hard to argue with what the final list actually is. It's a great starting 11.
You're like, I'm not trying to hate on the players. They did a great job voting
They
for
did a great
this.
job. They're doing their jobs, and that includes casting their votes.
Exactly. They voted. This was cool. It's really cool to see how the players kind of think of their teammates, their coworkers, their competition in specifically naming the Women's Super League Team of the Year. Very cool. So congrats to Grace Clinton, Young Player of the Year, and Kadisha Bunny Shaw on Player of the Year for the PFA Awards of 2024. Don't go anywhere. We are doing our very first Attacking Third Hall of Legends segment. Stick around. You got to see who we're inducting into the Hall of Legends. Hey everyone, welcome back to Attacking Third. It is time for the Attacking Third Hall of Legends segment. This segment kind of came about because there are so many legends in the women's game, historically, currently, of course, to come, that we don't even know about yet, that are going to rise up the ranks of the women's game. But there are so many that we want to honor. It kind of spins off a little bit of our Getting to Know You segment that we did leading up to the Olympics. But this Hall of Legends is going to be our new home where we get to recognize all the great players, teams, significant moments that have occurred both on and off the field in regard to women's football. So we're starting this segment today. And it is a big deal, Sandra, our very first legend to be inducted into the Hall of Legends. And we are doing the one, the only Heather O'Reilly, U.S. Women's National Team legendary midfielder. She was a 2015 Women's World Cup winner, a 3-time Olympic gold medalist, 3-time NWSL champion, 2-time Shield winner. She won a WPS championship. And currently, Heather O'Reilly sits 12th on the all-time international caps list for any nation with 231. She is the 8th most caps of any U.S. women's national team player. And collegiately, she was an absolute legend. She played at UNC, won 2 championships with the Tar Heel. She was a 2-time MVP in 2003 and 2006. And the Tar Heels retired her jersey, number 20, at UNC. Sandra, this was a very easy pick for us to go with Heyo for our first Hall of Legends inductee.
I'm so glad we're doing this, Lisa. I know we were going back and forth. We're like, we're gonna introduce this segment. Who should we roll with? And again, I'm talking about recency bias. We saw something with Gotham and they're friendly against Chelsea. Maybe we were gonna
Break it
get
down for us, Sandra. Tell us all what happened.
We thought maybe we were going to get to see Heather O'Reilly. Things worked out differently. She signed a 1-day contract with Gotham, but unfortunately a physical. She wasn't able to pass that, so was not able to play. But we thought for just a second, a brief fleeting moment, that we would maybe get to see Heyo on the pitch again, but it was not meant to be. But it motivated us. We were like, we really need to honor this player. This should be the player that we should talk about and induct in A3's Hall of Legends. And I'm glad that we are, because you know, Lisa, we're losing recipes. I gotta say, I feel that a little bit. I want to shout out Sam Mewis in the women's game real quickly here. And I really loved everything that they had going on during the Olympics. I thought Becky Sauerbrunn did an incredible job as co-host alongside her. And one of the episodes that I really loved was how Sauerbrunn was talking about some of those throwbacks to the more fun kind of cultural moments that the team did. And while someone like me hears that referencing a music video that they did, I'm like, ah, yes, that was so funny. What a time that was. There's also a whole ton of sectors of the internet that don't know that that type of stuff exists. And it's like, hold on a second, man, you can't lose the culture here. So I love that we're talking about legends and that we're starting with Heather O'Reilly, because I mean, massive, massive career, accomplished so much. Listening to you run down just some
Yeah,
of
just
the
some.
things that she's accomplished. She might look, I think if we do another segment in the future where we talk about some of the most accomplished award or title winning type of players, she's absolutely in the running for that as well. Because you're just running off maybe some of the big ones, but we're talking about awards that this athlete has won even into her high school era, right? Gatorade High School Player of the Year. Shout out to WPS when the Jersey girl was with Sky Blue, winning a championship in WPS as well. It goes on and on and on. It's just like you can go through any era of this particular athlete's life and say, okay, high school, college, professionally, internationally, look at all of these things she's won. She's got it in her trophy case.
And she's not even done yet. That's like what is also a very cool element and factor of this. If you're watching this, shout out to our producer because he pulled up a video or a picture of Heyo in celebration in 2009 when she was with Sky Blue. She ended up winning the championship in 2009. She was named MVP of that match, and she's celebrating in this picture with her hands up, number one fingers in the air. Her tongue is out. She almost looks like she's dancing a little bit. And that is the energy that Heather O'Reilly brings every time she steps on the pitch. And although she won incredible awards, right? Collegiately MVP in 2003 and 2006. You mentioned Gatorade High School Player of the Year. That was in 2002. She isn't done yet. Like, that's also a crazy thing to think about because most recently, her most recent season that she played in was in 2022 in Ireland. She played for Shelbourne FC, in the women's premier division in Ireland, and then she played in the 77 TST tournament, and she's played and been a part of that. So when it was announced, earlier this week, just a few days ago, that she on Monday, August 19th, Heather O'Reilly was gonna sign a one-day contract with NWSL side Gotham FC to play in their match against Chelsea, their friendly match. Then Gotham put out photos of Heather O'Reilly's jersey, and then, unfortunately, Heather O'Reilly wasn't available to play. She posted, quote, "ultimate buzzkill," because she didn't pass her physical. But the fact that she signed a one-day contract to do that proves how legendary she is, that she is ready, able, and willing to jump back into a competitive high stakes game at the professional level. Also, the fact that a team is wanting to sign her even for just a day proves how talented she is and how much they just want her on the team for even a day, even a
You
day.
you can't stop. You can't stop the legends. You know, you can't stop the legend lore, and you definitely can't stop Heather O'Reilly. It's just so funny because you're listening to you say like she's not done, and at the same time we're like, oh, we thought she was because she ended up walking away or retiring, and here she is still surprising us from time to time, and I respect it and I appreciate it because players like this are really, again, when you go down the timeline of her career, we're part of such foundational moments for various areas, whether it was the national team program or in clubs. You know, as you know, we saw many players of her era try to continue to grow the game domestically in the United States. We see that really cool picture of her celebrating with Sky Blue. She ended up getting a game winner to win them that WPS championship, and then just a couple of seasons later that league folds, right? And then out of that eventually rises another. So this is a player from a very specific era of time that still had to deal with growing the game in those growing pain type of ways. It's tough to kind of talk about at times, and have to remember kind of the minimum standards that weren't around during those moments of club play. And then to see that she was part of such memorable moments on the international stage. I mean, we're coming off the Olympics right now and celebrating a Team USA gold medal, as we should celebrate those things. And the last time we were talking about they got a gold medal was during those London Games. And everybody remembers that iconic semifinal against Canada and Alex Morgan with the Titanic music coming through with the header. But everyone almost forgets that it's Heather O'Reilly that is rallying this team and delivers that ball into the box. So it's things like that. We hear so much about the culture of the U.S. women's national team, and what that is, and how the early generations of the 99ers really kind of set those things in motions. But I would argue that players of O'Reilly's generation were ones that were tasked to kind of uphold that and kind of carry that through to the next generations, the ones that we're watching and rooting on now.
Yeah, that's a really fun memory and important moment in history to think about. It was almost like the bridge between the start of US women's national team and women's football in America and getting us to where we are now, because they had to continue to do a lot of the grunt work that doesn't necessarily get as much pomp and circumstance as the 99ers do, when they still had to do a lot of groundwork and they still had to continue to raise the level and bridge the gap that was ultimately there. And Heather O'Reilly was and is, right? She's not going anywhere yet. She is a huge pillar of all of the success that we've seen in the leagues domestically and overseas, and her ability to play in so many different teams, so many different leagues, and still make her mark on those teams and those leagues. It was an absolutely easy decision for us to go with Heather O'Reilly as our first legend inducted into the Hall of Legends. Sandra, you teased it a little. This Hall of Legends is not going to be just players that have formerly played. It can be anything, situations or off the field things that happen. So maybe we'll get a chance to bring in some of that women's soccer lore that you were talking about, of music videos and things like that, that we could potentially see being inducted into the A3 Hall of Legends. So get your thinking caps on to what kind of NWSL, US Women's National Team, WSL, just women's soccer lore there is out there that we can talk about a little bit. If you have any for us, let us know live on YouTube at youtube.com/attacking third in the comments. Leave us a review and a rating and let us know what you want to see or who you want to see inducted into the A3 Hall of Legends. Congratulations, Heather O'Reilly. Here's your metaphorical trophy. We love you. We are cheering for you. Don't go anywhere, guys. We have plenty more attacking third to chat about. We're diving into the Women's League Cup group stage draw results when we get back. Welcome back to Attacking Third alongside Sandra Herrera. I'm Lisa Carlin. Sandra, we have the draw results for the Women's League Cup. It is the group stage that is starting, that will kick off October 2nd and October 3rd with the knockout rounds, the quarterfinals starting January of 2025 with the semifinals February 5th and 6th, and the final of the Women's League Cup March 15th and 16th of 2025. So the Women's League Cup is a cup competition for Barclays and their top two professional women's leagues. So the group stage is split into North and South regions, and then there's the knockout rounds and so on and so forth. Arsenal is the reigning champions. They beat Chelsea 1-0 after extra time last season to win the final. And we had the draw this week. So we have our 5 groups of 5 teams each that will ultimately all start their group stage play in October. But let's run through these groups. Group A, Newcastle, Everton, Manchester United, Liverpool. Group B, Durham, Sheffield United, Sunderland, and Blackburn Rovers. Group C, West Ham United, Southampton, Portsmouth, London City Lionesses. Group D, Birmingham City, Leicester City, Bristol City, and Brighton. And then Group E is Crystal Palace, Charlton Athletic, Tottenham, and Aston Villa. So the teams that are not in these groups, you'll notice Arsenal, Chelsea. They are teams that are participating in the UEFA Women's Champions League. So Chelsea will enter this competition at the quarterfinal stage. And then Arsenal and Manchester City, once they exit the Champions League rounds, if they exit the Champions League rounds in 1 or 2, they will enter at the group stage playing in October. So there will be a draw ultimately if they lose in the Champions League to see which group they go in. But this is a very fun, interesting competition, Sandra. And now that we have the groups broken down, group of death, which group stands out to you? Who is the easiest path? Like, let's dive into some of this. Let's start with group of death. When you look at A, B, C, D, and E, which is the hardest group?
Oh my goodness. It's tough for me. I don't know if there's like a standout group of death or maybe more group of chaos, but I'm looking at the bookends. I think group A and group E could maybe provide some of those tougher fixtures, maybe to bring the chaos energy at least in either of those. So I'm gonna keep my eye maybe on those 2 groups. I think obviously there's gonna be some teams here that folks take a look at and say, okay, that's a pretty iconic club. They've got decent players. They're going to run away with their group. But that's the beauty of cup games. You just never know until you know.
You absolutely never know. There are a lot of upsets. There are things that can happen. I circled Group A as soon as this group was drawn in its entirety because United, Liverpool, and Everton are all Super League sides
Yeah.
that compete, right? Especially Liverpool and United. They are towards the top of the table. They're elbowing their way into the top 4. And Everton tends to play spoiler throughout the Super League season. So that's twofold for me. That means that Group of A is going to be a group of death in this competition, but it also means we get to see the weight that these clubs put on this competition versus league play in the Super League and going for a title. Because if you're a United and the difference is getting out of your group stage in this tournament or knocking into the top 5 or top 4 of the Super League, maybe even contending for a title, which one are you going to go for? How are you going to do players rest and rotation and different values like that? So Group A for me with Newcastle, Everton, Manchester United, and Liverpool is my group of death, the group that I am watching. But when we think about ultimately at the end of it, next March, Sandra, it feels like a
It
lifetime
does.
away. March of 2025 will be the final of this competition. Last year, it was Chelsea and Arsenal in the final, and Arsenal got the extra time game-winning goal to lift the title for Arsenal. Who is winning it this year? Bold prediction time, baby.
High drama. I love it. I also just want to give a real quick shout out to London City Lionesses and West Ham out in Group C. I think those 2 teams might provide some chaos energy as well. But I don't know, this little caveat of these teams entering the mix and getting into the fold kind of out of UEFA Champions League, it shakes up the cup tournament a little bit. So I'm kind of wondering if maybe one of the big heads will kind of come
I
in
know.
here and run away with things. And I'm kind of it's early, so let's make a bold prediction. I'm going to say maybe Arsenal.
Oh, I like that. Back-to-back wins potentially for Arsenal in this one. Yeah, it all depends. The way that City, Arsenal, Chelsea get involved in this is all about how far they go in the Champions League rounds, right? The farther you go, the less you have to play. So, like, Chelsea is not going to enter this until the quarterfinal stage. They get to bypass completely the group stage round, which good and bad. I think there are different elements to it. Playing in the group stage allows you to kind of feel out the competition, understand the mojo, which teams are going to upset because there are always some crazy upsets. in cups like this and in tournaments. But the way that Manchester City has been dominant and their players and the growth that City has continuously had over the last 2 years and how close City was to winning the title last year, losing out on the final day in the Super League season. I think City is going to go and win this tournament the way that they just need this win for this club and how stacked their roster is. I think Women's League Cup is going to go to City at the end of it. So you've got Arsenal, Sandra. I've got City. We'll see how it all unfolds. Okay, you gave a shout out to West Ham and I believe it was London City Lionesses. This is kind of along those lines. If you could have a team play spoiler throughout this competition, which team would you want to be the biggest spoiler, the biggest upset city in this competition?
Yeah, I'm gonna keep it with London City. I think you want to see maybe some of those other clubs who are in a different league kind of do well, maybe provide an upset here or there. Also, I know there's a lot of attention around them right now, just given the wave of investment that they're supposed to be getting with Michelle King as well. How is that going to look, right? I think these are the moments. These are the cup games, the potential titles where you want to see maybe kind of those resources come to life. And maybe it's going to be a slower, more longer term process, but these are often the measuring sticks. So I would hope that London City Lionesses get out there and shake some things up.
London City in Group C with West Ham, Southampton, and Portsmouth. I'm looking at Group E for a spoiler team, Sandra. This is a group with Crystal Palace, Charlton Athletic, Tottenham, and Aston Villa. And I think Hotspurs could go and disrupt some things. Go on, you Spurs. Tottenham is a team that could take on different competition. I think they can get out of their group. It's going to take a little bit of gritty work and gritty wins and doing everything they can on both sides of the ball. But once you get out of your group, there's a lot of momentum to play upset because you're then potentially taking on a Chelsea side that has just come in from Champions League and is on a roll with things. But that's what I'm going to say. Tottenham, I want them to kind of rustle some feathers throughout this tournament. We'll see. I love it that it's all getting started in Europe for up. The Women's League Cup kicks off on October 2nd and 3rd with their group stage dates. We have our groups, we've got the competition. Now we just need the whistle to blow and things to get rolling, Sandra. Don't go anywhere, though. We have our In Case You Missed It segment coming up next. You don't want to miss it. Welcome back to Attacking Third. In case you missed it, there's a lot of news and notes around women's football that we are catching you up on. Let's start with some happy news, Sandra. PSG midfielder Lieke Martens-van Leer has announced her pregnancy. So incredibly happy for her and everything that is to come for her growing family. Sandra, did you see the video that was out on social of this announcement?
It I thought it was such a cute surprise. I'm not gonna I love when we get to touch on things like this. Who doesn't love a human interest story? And this is something that is, I would argue, part of the women's game. We get to see players kind of evolve in other ways, not just on the pitch, but off of it as well. And I loved the announcement to her teammates and obviously the reaction as well.
Oh my gosh, it was so cute. If you haven't watched it yet, go watch it. It's on PSG's socials. She basically says like, "Hey, the last few weeks have been different for me and also different for you in my training, and it's because I'm expecting a baby, which is very exciting. So congratulations to her." Some other big news: Manchester City announced the signing of youth English international defender Naomi Layzell from Bristol City. Naomi is 20 years old. She won the women's championship with Bristol City in 2022 and 2023. Now she's headed to the big leagues in the Super League to play with Man City, adding a lot of depth to the City side. Sandra, it'll be fun to see kind of how she incorporates herself into this group. And as a defender, she's immediately going to have to go up against some of the big guns at City and learn to hold her own. But at 20 years old, I think to have a lot of confidence in this player, and that's exactly what this signing means. She got her first call up to the full senior national team for England just a few camps ago. So now she's taking that next step into the Super League, and it's exciting to see what kind of impact she'll have at City.
Yeah, I wonder if I'm with you on that last part. What kind of impact will she had? I do wonder if this is for depth, like where exactly is she going to fall in terms of the bench for Man City, because it's such a stacked squad, honestly. So is this a player that maybe we're going to get to see in some of those more like the cup competitions that we were already talking about?
Some other big news and trades happening in the NWSL. Up first, Racing Louisville makes another move fresh off the Olympics. They signed Colombian international center back Angela Barron to their roster. And then a huge trade, Sandra, that took down social media for a bit. Racing Louisville and Seattle Reign um, conducted a trade. So Racing Louisville acquired forward Bethany Balser from Seattle Reign in a trade for midfielder Jalen Howell and $50,000 in allocation money. So Balser goes from Seattle to Louisville, and Howell goes from Louisville to Seattle. Both Balser and Howell have spent their entire careers at their former clubs. Their first move that's now happened. When this dropped, Sandra, what was your initial reaction reading this trade news in the NWSL?
It was a little bit mixed on it, if I'm being honest. I think on one hand, when you look at like the sporting business side of things, I'm like, wow, what a trade that makes sense for both sides. Sure, like surely I guess it could be viewed as a win-win. But there was a little bit of a layer of I don't want to say shock or surprise, but I think it's a pretty big deal if you have a franchise that says, okay, yes, we are willing to put our team captain on the trade market and listen for offers. And I'm referring to Jalen Howell and Racing Louisville. It was just a few seasons ago at this point where she was drafted with their very high draft pick as really this core piece for Louisville to try and get on a path to competing within the NWSL, because this is a franchise that was an expansion club in 2021 and now still in 2024 trying to define themselves as far as the type of competitive team they are. They've been in ninth place every single season since their inception. Like, what is it going to take for them to break through? We're talking expanded playoffs this year. Is this another year where they end up in ninth place where they miss out again? So I think for me that was where maybe the small amount of surprise came in. It's definitely a, I don't want to say head scratcher, but it asks other questions that I'm not too sure if we will ever get more answers about. But maybe B, people might wait to kind of see how these players kind of integrate with their own teams. I'm sure player reaction as well is something that people take into consideration. And when you hear from players as they go on social media, whether it's Bethany Balser or Jalen Howell, and how maybe this is a tough moment for them to deal with, you have to commend them for their professionalism as well, because they are obviously also dealing with that moment, but trying to look ahead as well. So Balser kind of saying like people will have their own narratives, but eventually real stories come out. Howell saying, it's tough to leave a place that you've been with for so long. So I think there's layers to it, like there is to everything. But I think if you're looking at things just on paper, sporting business, player positions, I think this is a move that will ultimately work out for both sides here.
When I first saw that Balser was gonna go from Seattle to Louisville and then Hal from Louisville to Seattle, I was like, "Whoa, I need to see how these players fit in with this roster and how it changes the style and the play for both of these sides," right? Frankly, it to me on the surface, I feel like this is a better trade for Seattle. in terms of what they need to do this season. Seattle is second from the bottom of the table. They have not been able to score goals. They have not been able to finish games out, pick up points, and win. They've really struggled this year in order to find consistency. And getting a player like Jalen Howell, who is pretty young in her professional career, she's only played 3 seasons in Louisville. This is a player that can be a brick wall in your midfield. And now this potentially gives Laura Harvey the freedom to play a couple different formations in Seattle. She can play a double pivot with Quinn and Hal in the midfield. She could play Hal solo with G and Fishlock much higher. I think there's a lot more freedom to leave Hal by herself defensively and quote unquote expose her a little more to do a lot more defensive work than what Seattle was able to do over the first half of the season. It's going to be growing pains, though, and it's going to be different. And meanwhile, for Bethany Balcer going to Louisville, I think this is going to be a good opportunity for her to grow as a player. I feel like she's ready to take that next step in her career, and this might be the push that gets her over the edge to actually doing that. And specifically because Bev Yanez is the head coach at Louisville, and she goes from one incredibly teaching coach in Laura Harvey to another incredibly dedicated to teaching the game coach in Bev Yanez, but they do it so differently. So Balcer is going to be able to try out different things, maybe not have so much pressure on her to score goals because they have so many different players that can score goals and contribute to the games. And as a forward, without some of that pressure, it allows you to play a little bit more free, and then the goals start coming. And once the floodgates open, you continue to run with it. So a good trade on both ends. I think maybe a little better for Seattle in this moment. We'll see how it unfolds, and maybe even for Hal a little better than it is for Balcer. But ultimately, I think Balcer can use this opportunity to kind of re-kickstart her career and be on the map as one of the most lethal attackers in the NWSL because she can score and she can be so dangerous. We just haven't seen it as consistently, and perhaps that's because she was with Seattle. So we also talked about Louisville adding Angela Barone, the Colombian international, but in their ownership group at Racing Louisville, they've also added Louisville native and music star Jack Harlow, officially becoming a member of Racing Louisville and Lou City ownership group. Harlow has been at a lot of games for Racing Louisville, for Lou City. He's always there in the stands. They always show him on camera, but now he is officially part of that ownership group. Some big news and transfers out of Kansas City. They trade forward Alexa Spanstra to Portland Thorns for $25,000 in intra-league transfer funds and $15,000 in allocation money. And dropping just this morning, about an hour ago, the Kansas City Current sent defender Lauren to Atletico Madrid via a free transfer. So the Brazilian international is no longer in Kansas City, and Spanstra is no longer in Kansas City, which potentially opens the door for some more players to come to Kansas City. I don't know. Is there something deeper in this Kansas City trades that I'm not seeing, Sandra?
Listen, I don't want to make any predictions because just between these two, it's like, wow, truly anything can happen. And they're doing this while they're just sort of kind of co-running the league at the top of the table with Orlando Pride. So, listen, I'm high on Alexa Spanstra. She was a player that I had on early mock drafts back in the day, but she ended up playing another year and then declaring later on. And I think she's a great player, but I don't know if it's an attacking minded player is the fit for Portland, but that's the option they win. I would have liked to have seen them maybe go for a more defensive player. And Lauren, I mean, we hardly knew her. I'm like, we just got you, and now you're gone, and then we'll wish her well, and Atletico Madrid. But I mean, it's one of those things with Kansas City Current where you're just looking at these moves and you're just like, wow, like you really do have that amount of talent across your roster to just make these types of moves with. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if there's another bookend to Kansas City's moves.
Yeah, once you free up some roster space, that usually means you're looking to add some more. We'll see what happens from Kansas City. Of course, we'll keep you updated. Some other news out of Angel City. Defender Allie Riley admits that her current injury and recovery isn't looking as bright as she would have hoped and fans would have hoped. The New Zealand captain at the Olympics, the night before match day 1 for New Zealand, she had nerve-ending injury that removed her from the game day roster. She hasn't played for Angel City since April. And Riley said recently, quote, "For the past 7 months, I've been struggling with a nerve injury. It's been frustrating, confusing, and excruciatingly painful in a way that's hard to describe." So sending Allie Riley the best vibes, hugs, love for her recovery and to continue to get through this. Nerve injuries are terrible and scary to think about. We have the start of the CONCACAF W Champions Cup that started last night for the first group stage play. San Diego Wave defeated Santa Fe 2-0 in Group B match day 1. Maria Sanchez scored the opening goal in the 2nd minute. And then in the second half, it was Kristen McNabb with the second goal of the night. So Landon Donovan, as the new permanent interim head coach at San Diego Wave, gets his first win with the club, and they do it in fun fashion, 2-0 over Santa Fe. Sandra, did you expect this from Donovan and San Diego?
It's a good start for sure. I don't know if we could say that this is what we expected. I think when it comes to Landon Donovan as interim head coach, I don't know if there's a ton of expectations out there right now, but I do appreciate that when he sat with media in his first press conference and we asked him some of those questions along those lines, I asked him about the concept of pressure and the things that are in front of him right now as this interim head coach, which is this cup match and this remainder of the regular season for San Diego. And he was honest, and I like that he said that in his career he knows that pressure is fake. It's just like a thing that is sometimes there. But he also said that during the hiring process, these moments came up. What are the expectations? And that Jill Ellis and Cammie Levin-Aston said both. We want you to take this team through all of these arenas and succeed. So they want to have a good Champions Cup performance. They want to compete in this second half of the regular season. This is obviously step 1. Good for them for getting it done. I'm thrilled for Maria Sanchez. I'm thrilled for Kristen McNabb for getting the goals for this team. We're talking about goal scoring has been an issue for San Diego Wave all season. Maybe this is what helps get it kickstarted.
And this comes just ahead of the NWSL returning after the Olympics break. Another CONCACAF W Champions Cup news. In Group A, it was match day 1 as well. Fraser's Whip fell to Alajuelense 5-0. All second half goals for Alajuelense, starting in the 60th minute and then through the 81st to put 5 in over Fraser's Whip. But that is the end of match day 1 in the CONCACAF W Champions Cup. More to come for that. Of course, you can watch it across CBS Sports platform. We will be back in studio tomorrow, Thursday, for another great edition of Attacking Third. And don't forget to vote. If you received an email asking to vote in the final round of the People's Choice Podcast Award, vote for Attacking Third. Your gals, we want to win. Sandra, final thoughts from you before we close out?
Tune in. We're talking about women's soccer all the time, multiple days a week. Tune in.
You can do it. Make sure you follow Attacking Third wherever you get your podcast. Leave us a 5-star rating and review. And we're also available on youtube.com/Attacking Third. Plus, you can watch us on the CBS Sports Golazo Network for all your women's football coverage. For Mark, Sandra, this was Lisa. This was Attacking Third.